Hi, this is Len Edgerly for the Kindle Chronicles podcast, episode 702 from Sanibel, Florida. Today is Tuesday, January 10th, 2023. And I want to talk about the Scribe because there's a pretty good discount being offered by Amazon on the various configurations of the Scribe. Depending on which one you're looking at, you can save from $45 off the original price to $59 off. The Kindle Scribe 16 gigabytes with the premium pen. That's the system that I have, and I really like that premium pen because it has an eraser at the end of it. So when you're writing on the Scribe, you just tip it over and you're erasing just like you would with a number 2 pencil. So the package that includes the Kindle Scribe 16 gigabytes, that's turned out to be fine for me, plus the premium pen. It used to be $370, and now it's 14% off or $50 off, selling for $320. You'll see the other discounts that are available if you just search for Kindle Scribe at the Amazon site. And I want to thank Dan Campbell for alerting me to this sale. It's been on now for a while. I'm not exactly sure. I don't know whether sales of the Scribe are disappointing for Amazon and they're just giving it a boost or what. But whatever the reasons, this is a very exciting product that I've talked about. It's the first generation of the Kindle that you can read and write on. And so the fact that it's $50 off, if you thought it sounded interesting, but you wanted to wait for a better price, that better price has now arrived, and I'd recommend taking a look at it. I have been using my Kindle Scribe for about 7 weeks now. I got a review copy early, so I had time to take a look at it. And I want to tell you a few items about it. First of all, I really love reading books on the Kindle Scribe, and part of that is just the size of the screen. I'm actually going to be talking to the author of a book called How to Calm Your Mind, and you know this way of reading a Kindle book, it's very bright. It's 300 pixels per inch, and it's a 10.2 inch screen, and you can use the pencil to highlight. One thing that I like in terms of reading is that when I'm sitting in like on the couch back at the house, the rental house we're staying at here in Sanibel, as opposed to this house which is being repaired, I can rest the Scribe on my knee. If my knee is up, crossed over my leg, then I can read the Scribe without touching it. It just sits there kind of cradled on my leg or my knee, and that's not so possible for an Oasis or a Paperwhite. So that's something I've just kind of come to really appreciate. And I like reading I've always read with a pencil or a pen, I guess, actually. So the fact that I can now read actively, I can draw, if you drag across the page, it highlights it the way you do if you are reading a Paperwhite or an Oasis. And then the sticky notes. The sticky notes really are a whole new way of reading and writing longhand, because if I highlight a section on the Scribe and then I want to write something about how it's affecting me, then I have this big space. It's about a third of a page, and it's more than I could do if I was writing on pen in a book, because there you've just got the margins, you can write things, but you get this nice big space in the sticky note, and that enables you to do things which are pretty intriguing. And I've actually found myself doing some drawings, do kind of like a little sketch. The benefit of it is that while I'm reading the Kindle book, I can actually make a handwritten note. I have lots of space to do it, about a third of a page, and you can move it to the up part of the page or the bottom part of the page. and I can draw things. I did a sketch of the room that I was reading in the other day because I was reading a book about dyslexia and how people who have dyslexia actually have different ways of taking information in, very visual. So I just drew a picture of the living room that while I was reading the book. And I love the idea that the scribe is bringing my reading activity and my writing longhand or sketching together in a way they've never been able to be together before. I love the Remarkable 2 tablet. I use that quite a bit, but I can't read my Kindle books on it. But you could go through some hoops and do some conversions of Kindle books using Calibre if you wanted to. But the fact is that on the Scribe, all of my Kindle books are just there. And now I have this way to read them very actively because I can do these sticky notes. Now, I would love to be able to do the kinds of annotations that I've done with books, ever since I started reading, especially in high school. And I would like to be able to flip back and forth. I think it would be great in a future update of the software if I could annotate the way I can annotate a PDF on the Scribe, which is great, or I could just do these sticky notes, which I've really, really come to enjoy. So that's something that has been kind of a revelation to me as I've used the Scribe over this period of time. The book that I was reading just before I started reading Chris Bailey's book is The Dyslexic Advantage: Unlocking the Hidden Potential of the Dyslexic Brain. It's by Brock and Fernette Eide. And there was a story in this book which about a guy named Jack Laws, who has become well known for creating field guides of wildlife of California. And he was diagnosed in the 2nd and 3rd grade with dyslexia. His dad was an amateur bird watcher. His mother was a botanist. So he ended up doing field notes, diagrams and sketches, not words. When he went out, he was, doing things visually. And this trained him to look at things more visually. So there was a quote in the book when I was reading it on the Scribe Kindle book. If I wanted to sketch an object, I had to look at it again and again and again. And I discovered that even the most common things still held secrets and discoveries for me. That quote, if I had been reading it on my Paperwhite or Oasis, I probably would have highlighted it. I might have taken the time to tap out a little message saying, boy, I really like this. But by doing a sticky note, I drew a sketch of the living room at the house, and I wrote along the line of the ceiling, yes, you have to look and look again. So that phrase from this guy talking about his dyslexia and the advantages that it's given him over his lifetime, as opposed to the troubles reading and writing when he was a child, like my grandson Jake, I was able to maybe embed that more in my memory because I was able to make this little sketch and then say, yes, you have to look and look again. You have to keep looking at something in order to really understand it. So I'm thinking one way to imagine this is that this new way of active reading on the Scribe, using the sticky notes, it's kind of like giving my left and my right brain equal activity or options when I'm reading a book. I don't know. I'm kind of out of my bailiwick in speculating on how that works. But I'll just say that my personal experience is much more engaged, much more active, much more fun, really, to be able to read a book and within the book be able to start creating these little notes. Now, the exports of the notes, that's something I think Amazon needs to do some work on because at this point, I can't see the notes when I tap notes on a non-scribe. Like if I pull up the same book, like the dyslexia book or the Chris Bailey book, on my iPad, I can see the passages that were highlighted just the way I always could, but I can't see those little sticky notes that I make on the iPad or on my iPhone or another device. And they also don't show up on my other Kindles. The only place that they show up when I pull up highlights is the Scribe itself. Now, the other way that I can see them is if I export my notes on a book, and that's quite easy. That you have the option to do a fast export to the email address that's sort of set up with your account, or you can email to, I think, up to 5 people. They will get all of your annotations, and in that, when I open up the email that I send to myself, I see a PDF, and I click on it, and it's a PDF, and the PDF does have the sticky notes that I can see. So anyway, I think that that's something which I hope there's better ways to take advantage of that active reading that I'm doing on the Scribe. But for now, the reading itself is really a lot of fun, and I'm very excited about it. I feel like it's something I can do now on the Scribe that is brand new, and the more I do it, the more I learn about the benefits of it. Now, the other big aspect about the Scribe for me is simply writing longhand. And I've done this, I took some notes on a course I took online from Jim Finley, but the big place where I'm having a chance to do it is a journal. And partly because I had the Scribe, I resumed my journaling practice. I've journaled ever since I was a boy in paper journals, and lately lots of moleskin journal notebooks. But for the past year or two, probably during the time I've been doing the morning journal, each morning I do this 5-minute audio journal, and it kind of takes the place of morning journaling. But when I took the Jim Finley course, he talked about writing as part of his practice, meditation practice. I thought that's, if you were contemplative, you just sat around and did a lot of sitting, and I'm doing a lot of sitting. I love sitting. But the idea that a journal practice could actually be as important a way to, go to depth, be in the presence of God, however you want to look at it, that excited me. And it coincided with the arrival of the Scribe. So now each morning and each evening, I set my timer for 20 minutes, and I simply write on the Scribe. But it's just longhand. And I chose, I think about 18 different ways you can have the page look, but I chose the lines, so it looks like kind of a moleskin lined page. And it's so pleasing to write on it. The nib, which you replace because it sort of gets used up over time, feels very smooth on the device, on the e-ink screen. It's fun. It's trying to describe. It's really been a reclaiming of an activity that I've done for years, journaling, which it's just an old pleasure on a new platform that I'm really enjoying. Now, one thing I've noticed is that when I was journaling a year or two ago, I would get my moleskin journal going. I'd be setting up. I'd have a cup of coffee. I'd have all my writerly prompts and ambience set up, and I would start writing, usually with a black gel pen. I really like the Amazon Basics gel pen. And I would be writing in the journal. But there was something about at least that phase of my journaling is if I wanted to, like say this morning's journal entry that I have on the Scribe starts out, we watched The Fabelmans last night, Steven Spielberg's autobiographical movie. Now, if I wasn't quite sure how to spell Fabelman, I would leave the paper journal, fire up my iPad or one of the screens on my desk and look it up, and then return with the accurate information. But what would often happen is that there would be, it would take me to a review of the Fabelmans in the Times, and I would read that, and I think, oh, that's an interesting idea. That's kind of like how I thought of the movie, but it's different. So there'd be all these potential distractions as I would write in my paper journal, because I would just flip over into all the things that you can do on the internet. I could have made this same change, but it coincided with using the Scribe. Now, when I journal on the Scribe, my kind of rules of engagement are I don't look anything up. If I don't know how to spell something, I will simply give it a shot, and I might put in parentheses question mark to indicate that I'm not sure it's the right spelling. But I never leave the page that I'm writing on. And I think that keeps me in more of a contemplative space for the journal. It's not so much, I'm drafting a blog post or an essay for Medium. This is special space where, especially in the morning session, I've usually sat for a while, then I sit down in a comfortable chair, and I'm simply writing in this place, on this screen with this pen. And I think that's deepened the experience of my journaling. I've also, as a coincidence, I've started reading the Asia Journal of Thomas Merton, famous contemplative from the 60s who Jim Finley studied with at Gethsemane, a Trappist monastery. And boy, there's a journal. He was a real writer. His autobiography, The Seven Story Mountain, I'm also starting to read again. Beautifully written, surprising bestseller back when he was a Trappist monk. So it was kind of an odd thing for a Trappist monk to all of a sudden be a best-selling author because of this autobiography. But so I think I'm in the mind of Merton as I understand him when I'm journaling on my Scribe. He apparently had journals which he expected would be made public after his death. I think the Asia Journal was more... Yeah, I think the Asia Journal was that kind. Then there's sort of a deeper journal that's more intimate that I think is being protected by the estate or whatever. But now in my Scribe, I'm writing from as deep a place as I can go. It's a timed exercise, sort of like morning journals. That's kind of something which is who was it? Julia Cameron, I think. But I'm writing it in a way that if, one of my descendants finds it and wants to do something with it, it won't have a lot of things that are difficult to understand, except perhaps my handwriting, which is pretty rough. And I'm hoping that a future update for the Scribe is going to do the ability to convert handwriting to regular text. And a couple of things, I just am not going to really dwell on the aspects of the interface that I hope are improved. But one I'll mention is that because I'm doing journaling twice a day, and I've set up each notebook on the Scribe as a month, that's 30 days, and that's a lot of pages. If I wanted to go back and say, well, I wonder what I wrote about 3 weeks ago, there isn't any kind of an easy slider way to move back to the other pages. You just have to flip manually, use your finger to just go back and move to get past to the pages. And that gets pretty cumbersome if you've got a document of any length, which these journal entries are going to have quite a bit of length. The other thing, cut and paste, especially when I'm drafting notes for my podcast or I'm thinking something through on the Remarkable, there's a very well-designed thing. You can kind of lasso some text, and then you can drag it to another part of the page. You can cut it. You can paste it into a completely different notebook. That's a bit of flexibility that I think really needs to arrive quickly on the Scribe for it to just be a better place to think things out as opposed to just write longhand the way I do in the journal. And in general, just getting things up on the computer, Remarkable, I think you have to pay. Because I got my Remarkable early, I don't have to pay, but you pay so much a month for the ability to have what you write on your Remarkable tablet just show up on the Remarkable app on your computer. That's hugely convenient, and I would love to see that capability built into the Scribe. And maybe if you're a Prime member, you get to have the space on your computer where you can see your Scribe and make changes. I'm sure all those kinds of things are ahead. I hope they happen sooner rather than later. If a year from now, or I'd say a year. If a year from now, I still feel like I'm giving up some of the convenience of the Remarkable tablet by using the Scribe, that's going to kind of grate on me a little more. At this point, I'm saying it's a first-generation product. It's fine, and the basics are just fantastic. But it's going to be a bit of a race. Remarkable has sold, I think, more than 1 million tablets, and they're not going to stand still. They're advertising like crazy on Twitter and elsewhere. I'm sure they understand they're in the race of their lives now if they're going to continue to be a viable tablet as the Scribe gets some traction. But and the Scribe is always going to have the advantage of not only is it a place I can write, but it's a place I can read my Kindle books, and I've got sticky notes, and I love sticky notes. And I just love this tablet, I have to say. I'll step away from my sort of tech journalist hat and say, this is one of the coolest things that I've been added to my list of gadgets and toys in a long time. It used to be when I was a kid, and I'd get something. The one that gets talked about in the family is I got a Davy Crockett hat when we were living in Pampa, Texas, when I was about 6 years old, and I took it to bed with me. I wore it or I put it under the pillow, and I still have that impulse sometimes now when I get something that I just love. When I go to bed, I want to put it under my pillow. I want to have it with me when I'm sleeping. And this Kindle Scribe is in that category of things. I've got I think this is the premium leather case, which is like almost $100. There's a regular leather case and a fabric case. And they all have the basics of being able to flip over, and you can set it up as to read it or write on it at a nice angle. But every time I'm walking to where I'm going to pick this thing up for my journaling, my hands are sort of ready to feel the leather and to feel the very thin but solid and pleasing touch of it, the haptics of it, and then opening it up, and then it automatically opens up to where I was last. If it's my journal, it's my journal, and I do the next page, or I read a little bit more of Chris Bailey. I don't know what to compare it with. I can remember a paperback copy of The Count of Monte Cristo that I used to read. We used to go to a lake up in New Hampshire, Bear Camp Pond, and I'd sit down there by the dock in a summer day reading The Count of Monte Cristo, probably with a pen so I could mark passages. And just the feel of that book and the story and how it electrified me, 60 years on, at 72, I'm tapping into the same pleasure of having this Kindle Scribe to get to know and to I just love it. If you're using a Kindle Scribe, I hope maybe you'll leave some comments for me. And coming up, I will be having an interview with Chris Bailey. His book, How to Calm Your Mind, was published on December 26th, my sister's birthday. It's an excellent book. I'm maybe about 20% into it, and I've had him on the show before when he had an Audible original about meditation as a productivity practice. And then I've got I'll be talking to Jerry Riddle, I hope, around the time his next book comes out, which is called Quantum Radio. It looks really cool. And Sanibel Journal, that's my new podcast, which I have a mayor interview that I'm hoping to set up with Mayor Holly Smith. That's going to be a podcast about the recovery of Sanibel Island here after Hurricane Ian. And looking forward to that. I also hired a tech guy in India to help me to prepare the show notes page for the Sanibel Journal, which I host the page and the audio at Libsyn. And great guy I've talked to a couple of times from India that's supposed to have me up and running with a new platform. And the way to find that one, I was able to buy the domain name sanibeljournal.org, SANIBEL.org. There's some episodes up there already, and then I'm going to start having longer interviews as I go along. In terms of our own recovery here, I'm at the house that we own on Sanibel, and we've rented a place 2 houses down, very fortunately. And the drywall has now been completed here at this house. Next, there'll be some mudding and painting. I think the air conditioning maybe is going to be repaired today. So we've had a lot of good progress, and we hope to be able to move back in by the end of this month. This room that I'm in now is our bedroom and was my kind of podcasting office area. It was not damaged in the hurricane, so this room has been just fine. And I have a commute from the rental house, just riding my bike 2 houses down the street to get here to talk to you here on the podcast and do other things. So there's a lot of work to be done here on Sanibel. My guess is that maybe only 20% of the residences are occupied at this point. Other people are just living off island and doing the repairs as best they can. There might be 5 to 8 restaurants that have opened up. Some of them have set up a food truck. The Blue Giraffe, one of our favorite restaurants now, has a nice kind of, it's not even just a truck, it's just like a temporary place where they're serving meals. And then Sanibel Deli is another great spot that we go. So it's, the devastation here from that hurricane, which was on September 28th, is still just, it's an island that has been whacked so hard by nature. And everybody's rebuilding. We've gotten to know our neighbors, and I love this place more than I ever did a year ago when we bought it, when there was no plan to have it be hit this hard by a hurricane. But it's a very unusual place that calls on people's hearts in good times, and in a tragedy or a crisis like this, I think it's kind of reaching even deeper into the connections that people feel for it. Sanibel Island, Florida. That's it for the Kindle Chronicles for now. And if you have any comments, you can send me an email at podchronicles@gmail.com. And thanks for listening.